Hello, my friends and gems. Welcome to another episode of Love and Money Secrets TV. I am just beaming with joy because we have Noeline Levinson from the other side of the world, from New Zealand, who is here with us today to share with us some secrets to success in dealing not just with your brain, but with your whole life at large. Noeline Levinson is one of the premier authorities in the subject of brain profiling, not just in New Zealand, but globally. When I did research looking for brain profilers in the United States, the majority of them just specifically specialized in brain profiling criminals. And I could only find like two at the time, maybe not even sure that there were three. There are two that I could find in the United States that dealt with the rest of the population that is not inclined towards a criminal bent, right? And so, Noeline, thank you, my beautiful friend and gem. I know I should be sharing you with the world a lot more frequently. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love to be here with you.
Well, before we get started, I know that from our previous conversations, you have two very particularly intriguing stories that I would love for you to share. So before we get started, would you mind sharing those two stories that are just rich with so many cool nuances that I think will appeal to the majority of our viewers?
Absolutely happy to do that. A while ago, I met up with a woman who has three of her own children, and she adopted her fourth child. And interestingly, she felt that she knew her own children, which would be correct because your genetic brain dominance profile is genetically inherited. So you're getting some from mom, you're getting some from dad. And so this made a little bit more sense. But the child who had been adopted felt unknown to her. And so we started by profiling this little one. And it really made an enormous difference because she was unlike anybody else in the family. And she had what we call a left blocked profile. And what that means is that under stress, nothing in the brain was functioning. And so what would happen to her is when she would get stressed, she would just withdraw inside herself and go absolutely quiet. And this frustrated this mum enormously because she would sort of say to her, snap out of it, you know. And even if the child wanted to snap out of it, she couldn't. Because in that fear response, so your brain profile switches into itself in a fear response. Either it can also be when you're angry or panicked, but under fear, this is when we go into our profiles. And so this child was absolutely locked into that fear response and unable to speak. She wasn't really listening. She couldn't take action. She would just maybe stand there and maybe cry. And a week later, I caught up with this mum after having had the profile done, and she said to me this was the most valuable thing she had ever learned in terms of how to cope with this child. They had been doing homework, and the child was getting frustrated and not managing, and she was getting a bit agitated. And she said, okay, well, let's just take a break and let's go to the kitchen and have some pancakes. And they arrived in the kitchen to find that the older sisters had eaten all the pancakes. And the child just stood very quietly and just began to cry. And so instead of her saying, just snap out of it, it'll be okay, she now understood what she was looking at. And so instead of reprimanding her, she went to her and wrapped her arms around her and said, it's okay, my sweetheart, come, let's. And she just rocked her slightly and held onto her, which will then calm the response, which will allow her brain to switch back on. And she said, should we make some more pancakes? And the little girl just shook her head. Yes, that's what she wanted. And so let's do that. Let's make more pancakes. And so within seconds, she had diffused the situation instead of going head on with the profile. And honestly, I cannot tell you how many times I have come across this story. I had another mum who in the morning where she was shouting at her son because he wasn't getting ready for school. And she kept shouting at him. where is your suitcase? And why haven't you packed your bag? And have you brushed your teeth? And once I had done the profile with her, she understood that the son could only do one task at a time. And the more she shouted, the more he panicked because he was a perfectionist and wanted to get it right, the less he could do. And so she'd find him in the bathroom brushing his teeth, and she'd say, well, what do you do? What's going on? And I'd say, well, I've forgotten what else I had to do. And so once she'd learned that he could only do one thing at a time, she only gave him one instruction. So she said, okay, Tom, off you go, brush your teeth, and he'd brush his teeth. And she said, super, that's all done. Great. Brush your hair. And he'd do that. And then she said, right, super, now let's pack your bag for school. And he'd go off and do that. And she said the mornings became peaceful and quiet. No more was there shouting and fighting and crying. So he would go to school feeling happier.
Oh, yeah. So he was, in essence, enabled for success because she
Correct.
understood the way he needed to be communicated to and instructed. He would follow the instructions if he knew what he needed to do next. But in his, he's a little child, and sometimes kids can have, a short, heck, even adults can have short attention span. So it's like, just give him one thing at a time. He can do this. And then now the next step, now you're setting him up for success because he's going, okay, did that, check that, going on to the next one.
100%. 100%. And setting people up for success, that's the aim of the game. I know my son came to me and said to me, oh, Mom, I want to be a personal trainer. And I said to him, sweetheart, that's lovely, but your brain profile is going to struggle a little bit with this. But go ahead, go and train, and let's see what happens. And of course, he did the training because he loves to go to the gym. And he thought that his love of going to the gym would enable him to be a trainer. But the truth was that the week that he had to now go out, he got the job and he got out there to train. But because of his profile under stress, what he does is withdraw. He doesn't come out fighting under stress. He goes inward. And that didn't allow him to go up to people and go, hi, I can help you with that. Would you like some help with that? He's not that person.
Yeah.
And so within a week, he came to me and said, oh, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, that's okay. I understand. You gave it your best shot. Now, what should you do? Let's look at other things. And so he went into something else that I knew he'd be good at. And a little while later, he came to me and said, well, Mom, how about I become an estate agent? And I said, sweetheart, give it a go. But I know that your profile isn't going to really thrive in that place. But give it a go. So off he went and he studied. And a week of knocking on doors and trying to talk to people, he phoned me and went, this isn't for me. And I went, no, it's not. He said, Mom, what can I do? And I said, well, here are the things that really would help you to thrive. And away he's gone and he's doing brilliantly. And so working to your strengths just makes life so much easier. And that's really what we want to do. We want we want people to thrive, right?
Yeah, I love what you said, working towards people's strengths. And, oftentimes we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And, as mothers, we want to do the best for our kids. And, none of our kids come with a training manual saying, this is how Sally is wired, this is how Johnny or Tom is wired. No, we kind of have to figure it out as we go. And thank goodness we do have mother's intuition, which helps a lot, even though we live in a day and age that encourages us to deny our intuition, unfortunately, and disconnects us, right?
Right.
But there is a solution out there. And I love what you say about playing to the child's strengths and setting up the family, not just the individual, because of course, each parent has to deal one-on-one with each child. And we can literally if we can set up families up for success, and I do want to say families, because families make up societies.
Correct.
And so now that child, what a difference from when Johnny was told, hey, brush your teeth and, get your clothes on, grab your backpack, come down for breakfast, da, 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 da. He's like, whoa, I can't remember this list of 8 or 10 things. It's like after she said, go brush your teeth, he stopped listening because he was focused on getting his teeth brushed and doesn't know what to do next. And he wants desperately, being a little man that he is, he happens to be a boy, but he desperately wants to, please this female figure, his mother, but he can't because he was overwhelmed with all this other stuff, which he didn't even have the capacity to hear.
Correct.
And I think the nuance here is that this is not just little boys, a little man, but even big men.
Correct.
We see in brain scans when we, wire them up, you see that, women, we have 8 different sections of the brain and 3, 4, 5 of them will light up at the same time. And in a male brain, 1 section lights up at a time. Thank goodness that it's 1 section at a time. And thank goodness for women that it's multiple sections at a time, which is why we need to, we complement each other. That's the survival. That's why human beings still exist. If we only had one or the other, we would not exist.
Yeah.
And so talk more about setting up the family for success. What is your approach or your thought process when you have, probably usually it's a mother, I would imagine, maybe sometimes it's a father, but a parent that comes to you and says, okay, this is the challenge that we're having?
Well, Lillian, that's such a good question because I usually tell the parents that I have to profile them too. So I very seldom just profile a child. I often profile the mother and the child, or the father and the child, because I want to know how you communicate. And so I can say, look, you like it like this, but your son doesn't. You do it this way, but your daughter isn't going to communicate that way. And so if I know that, I can see where the pitfalls are going to be. I can see where the fights are going to happen. And so we can intercept, for me, prevention is better than cure. It's always been that way for me. I'd love to prevent the problems. I mean, I can come in and fix them too, but let's see what we can prevent instead of waiting for the wheels to fall off. And so if I know the parent's profile, then that helps me and helps them to understand why they're having the difficulty. The funny thing is, Lillian, we all think that everybody thinks like we do. And if they don't, there must be something wrong with them, right? Right. Okay. Wrong. It's not that way. We all think differently. And more importantly, we all react differently to stress because it depends on which area in your brain you're dominant. And that's going to make a difference how you behave in stress to how I behave in stress. So I'll tell you a funny story. When many years ago, I was in my car driving along, and I turned to talk to my son in the back seat, and I didn't notice that an accident was happening in front of my car. Anyway, a motorbike cyclist came off his bike and he skidded in front of the car. And I turned around to see the end of this thing happening. And I leapt out of the car and I went to stand over him. And 2 seconds later, another woman appeared in front of me, and she had her phone in her hand. I also had my phone, but I didn't do anything with it. She had her phone and she was dialing the emergency. And I looked at her and I thought, gosh, I could have done that. But I didn't, because under stress, I don't speak under stress. And so I was unable to do that. My legs work. I'm able to go to the scene, but I wasn't able to speak. So while my heart was thumping, I couldn't have made the phone call, but she reacts differently under stress. She was able to speak under stress. So there she was, able to do what I couldn't do. But I saw my profile in absolute clarity in that moment, because both of us with our phones, and yet I didn't behave like she did. And it's this understanding that makes all the difference. And the other thing I wanted to bring up at this moment, because it keeps knocking in on my head to say, and that is, teachers tell me, it'll take me a year to figure out this kid. Yes, it'll probably take you a year, but by then, at the end of the year is finished. Now that child's going to move to another class with another teacher. Wouldn't you rather start the year knowing the child instead of waiting to figure it out through the year? I mean, wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you can fast track and collapse the timeframes that it would take for the teacher to be efficient and effective with addressing all the children in her classroom. If each family would take it upon themselves to learn what their child and what their brain profile shows for them as a couple and the interaction with their child, then the teacher can, in essence, divide the classroom in 2 or 4, depending on the 4 different primary categories that there are. You know, you have the ones who respond slowly, who maybe freeze, and here are the ones that are the runners or who are fighting back, you know, in under stress. Those who are quiet and just become wallflowers, you know, you have to deal with them differently than those who are come out the gates as soon as they're stressed with fighting, or they take off and they run. So if you have a strategy as a teacher in place, then you're going to be able to cater to all of them and command that classroom with authority, which is going to make those children feel more secure, because there's nothing worse for a child than to see an adult out of control who doesn't know what to do. That makes them more frightened.
Correct. 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 So now you've got children who are feeling safe, but more importantly, understood, seen. Don't we all want to be seen? We all want to be understood.
We want to be seen. We want to be understood. We want to be acknowledged. So what a powerful, powerful device to have brain profiling available. And I know that you've had some pretty cool story. We can wrap this with this. I know you have a story where you had done brain profiling for this particular family, and I believe you had used the patches to help, because the patches help reset and restore the brain, the entire body, your whole chemistry. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Oh, I'd love to. So I had a little boy, he's 11 years old, autistic, and the sweetest child. We did the brain profile and I could help the mum understand what was going on. But she agreed to use the patches. And this little child was the sweetest thing. He wouldn't try them until his kinesiologist had said these were right. And of course, they took the patches along and the kinesiologist said, right on, these are the ones that'll work for you. And he happily wore them. And do you know that he has not only improved in his ability to communicate, he's much calmer, he doesn't respond overly any longer, but more importantly, all the supplements that he was on have now been decreased. I think he's on 1 compared to the whole range that he was on. And in fact, his mum was so interested in this that she decided she'd start wearing the patches, and she's come off all the supplements she no longer needs. So then the father decided, well, this looks too good to be true. So he decided he'd start. And so a snowball effect happened, which is really great for this family. But noticing how his communication skills have changed,
Proved.
because it's calmed the system completely down and helped with the detoxification. So when we're looking at autism, we're looking at toxicity, and the most important thing is to get those toxins out. And then start the rewiring of the brain, really, which is really the key thing, because the child is not now on defense, they're on development. I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I could smell more than I normally did. And I went to the movies with my husband, and somebody had garlic, and normally that wouldn't bother me at all. But actually this time it actually freaked me out so much. And I said to him, look, I've got to move. And he was like, you're behaving so badly. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I've got to get out of here. I've got to move. So I got up and I went to the back of the theater and I sat there and I was quiet. But I began to understand my autistic children from that moment on, and from a different level, because their senses have been turned right up. So they don't like touch, and they don't like textures, and they don't like smells, and they don't like sounds, or the hyperacusia. And so I began to understand what it feels like, which is why they withdraw and they're so uncommunicative or inappropriately. And so, and it does look like they're behaving badly, because there I was, a full-grown adult behaving really badly. And so I really got that at that moment. And so toxicity is so important. And these patches are so wonderful because they're not putting medicine in. It's your body healing itself. And helping that body get those toxins out is such an important thing.
Yeah, I think that's something, you speak to something that people have really, because they haven't taken a second to think about it, if you have, and it could be an autistic child, or it could be just a neurodivergent child or adult. But if you're hearing, instead of having the normal base hearing that's appropriate, if your hearing is 5 times more sensitive, 10 times more sensitive, or 15 times more sensitive than the average human, then the typical sounds that you have in your home environment that we don't even think about is painful
Yes.
to someone whose hearing is 5, let alone 10 or 15 times more sensitive, because it actually hurts because of the sensitivity. It is actually unbearable, which is going to drive that, anybody who's in pain. And
Correct.
the same thing could be true for an offensive smell or something that is, you're tasting something food-wise and you're thinking, okay, this is like not even spicy. And then you give it to your child and it's like, this is like fire. And you're like, no, it's not. But to them, if their taste buds are 3 to 5 or 7 times more sensitive than yours, you cannot discount what that individual is telling you. It's like, no, it hurts when I eat that, or it's like, it's horrific. I cannot even, I have to, it's like a reflex. It goes in,
Correct.
they immediately spit it out. You
Correct.
try to force feed it, they immediately vomit it. It's
Correct.
because that vibrational frequency of that food is incongruent and not compatible with that body system, no different than sound for you or me that's 10 to 15 times louder than is acceptable
Correct.
would be painful.
Correct. Correct.
Where can people get a hold of you to learn more about how they can book a time to speak with you, to learn, see if they can apply to see if their family would be eligible to get brain profiled, and see to what capacity you can start to help this family improve a better, happier, healthier, balanced state?
Okay, I have a website called brainfocus.nz, and all my details are there. You can follow along from there. It has an email address, there's a contact me page. I'm easy to get hold of.
Fantastic. Okay, my friends and gems. So in the description below for the show and in the comments, I'll put it in both places. I'll take the comments and I'll pin it to the top. If you want to reach Noeline Levinson, we are doing a weekly series. We're going to actually skip next week because I'm actually going to be in Orlando, Florida. But the week that we come back, we will be moving forward once, twice, 3 times a month. We will be bringing this incredible life-saving technology to you guys in the form of brain profiling and patches. And so to reach Noeline, you can go to brainfocus.n as in Nancy, as in new, Z as in Zealand. We'll put it in there so you don't have to remember it. You can always look at the show notes or the description below. Noeline, I can't wait. I know you have so many incredible stories. I can't wait to share more of these. And look her up on Facebook, my friends and gems. She is on Facebook. If you go to my profile, I will go ahead and I will tag her on there. So you'll see her with Noeline Levinson. You can connect to her. You can just go straight to her, ask her any questions, any comments that you might have. And I encourage each and every one of you to book a little time with her. It will be worth your time. I guarantee it. Apply to see if you might be eligible to work with her. Okay. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you. Until we see you again, ... Ciao for now.